I am Heidi Benjaminson, your host of Confidence Coaching, a podcast for mothers who want to stay calm and anchored no matter the emotional weather around them. Life isn't a spectator sport. Success comes to those who show up every day with a pocket full of courage, grit, and a little sparkle. I'm glad you're here. Hello. Welcome to episode 174, Building Core Confidence. Welcome to all of my wonderful listeners. I appreciate you all, and thank you for sharing the podcast. If you have a moment, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I really appreciate it. Last week, a fellow coach and fellow podcaster, my dear friend Jane, told me that she had searched in a podcast rating website and saw that my podcast is in the top 2% of all podcasts, ranked by listeners or some other criteria. How cool is that? Top 2%. I appreciate all of you. In today's episode, I want to share an experience I had recently on how my body's core kept me balanced and stable. And then I'm going to share several ways that we can build a solid emotional core. Last week, we went skiing in Austria. My daughter is a great skier, and when we told her that we were moving from New England, she was devastated for many reasons, but not to go to ski club each Friday night. I didn't want her to lose this skill of skiing, and I've enjoyed the many times that she and I have been able to ski together. So this year, we extended her February long weekend break, and we met my brother's family in Austria, where they have skied for the last several years. Now, snow this year in Austria, it isn't great. It's been a very light year, which is okay because we were so taken in by the most gorgeous views, and we stayed in the most adorable town called Seefeld, and it's where the 1964 and 1976 Winter Olympics were held. Now, on the second day of skiing, my daughter and I went to a bigger mountain than we had started on the first day. We took the tram up a very high mountain. My husband went with us because he could then see the views and he could take the tram back down instead of skiing down, which is what Abby and I were going to do because he doesn't really ski. The runs, they looked longer and the views were simply breathtaking. Now, you had to be fairly experienced to be on the mountain. I was still getting a feel for how the trails were ranked there. It's not like blue and green and black like I'm used to. Well, some are, but the degree of difficulty is different from what I'm used to. And I personally like to stick to easy or intermediate runs, and my daughter likes more advanced runs. She's fast. She's a really skilled and good skier. She tracks her speed on her phone, and she was trying to beat her previous speeds. Now, I prefer slower. My goal is to enjoy the day and not get hurt. On our first few runs down, I realized that what the resort classified as intermediate or easy had a fair amount of moguls on them and had less grooming than I was used to. It was okay. It was just harder than I prefer. And these were the main runs down. Like I couldn't avoid them. It was enjoyable, just a lot of work. And it was a beautiful sunny day, which meant I was actually just sweating from every pore. Now, after a few of the main runs, my daughter asked if we could take this bigger lift up to longer and higher runs. There were definitely less people up there. These trails seemed to be rated the same as the others that we had done. But I kept saying to my daughter, I am not going on the Black Diamonds. So we went up. It was stunning. It was gorgeous. And as we got up at the top, I saw what looked like very steep runs down. We started down, and my sweet daughter, she would wait for me in the spots where a hill would level out a bit. The first time down was the hardest because I didn't know what to expect. When I could maybe just enjoy things or when I really needed to be concentrating all of my focus and muscles on navigating the many moguls. The trails were almost all moguls with some leveling out between them, which are just much harder to navigate and much harder to ski. There were very few skiers on these trails, which really was a blessing because I wasn't trying to not hit people in addition to just handling myself going down. What I noticed as I went down the hills and navigated all the moguls was how my core muscles were working in overtime. To steady my body and legs, my core was compensating and it was keeping me balanced when my legs would need to quickly stop or turn sooner than anticipated. To stay upright, I was using all of my core and my back muscles. I told myself how grateful I was that I've worked on those muscles at the gym for years. They were the difference between falling and getting injured on those runs versus staying upright and just enjoying it. Now, I did fall a few times, but I was able to get my gear and get back up. Abby and I would take the lift back up and do this run a few more times until she peeled off and she went even higher by herself, trying to beat her time. She told me really nicely that I was slowing her down because she would then wait for me. And I felt okay that she could take some side lifts and runs on her own. This was going to be building her own confidence. And I need to let her go off and do some of these things that I know she can do on her own. On the last run down, when I was by myself, I caught myself at the top, looking down at each section of the moguls. And if my brain engaged and I paid attention to what I was thinking, I would get scared. I would think, oh wow, this looks so hard. How am I going to do this? Then I consciously would think and tell myself, well, you've done it several times already. You can do it. Just take a few turns at a time. Take breaks. Don't go too fast. And also don't think too much about it. Do what you know you can do. And it's actually going to be fun. I could still feel my core working like crazy to keep my legs and upper body steady and balanced. At the end of my last run, I did fall in a way that I could feel my ankle twist as I adjusted my skis. The mountain was about to close anyway, and I told myself, this is it. I don't want to get hurt. I'm done for the day. And it's been a really great day. Now, I share this experience because my brain is always working to compare our physical experiences with our emotional experiences. And there are so many core emotional exercises and muscles that we build and can strengthen, which will keep us balanced and reduce injuries when we're navigating really hard emotional terrain, like the moguls. Almost everyone I know is navigating sending children to college, tensions in marriage, divorce, supporting children as they make choices contrary to values you taught them, or they're just facing their own natural human challenges. Maybe there's financial strains and more. No one is immune to these challenges. And if we avoid them or run from them, we don't become stronger. I was proud of how I handled the tough mountain, and I've been proud of how I've changed to more maturely handle emotions within myself and in relation to others. So let's talk about building our core confidence. What kept me balanced on the run, and what keeps us balanced in daily life? Funny thing, let me share what happened the day we left on this trip and how I emotionally stayed balanced. A few hours before we left for the airport to fly to Austria, I was driving too fast to CVS for last-minute items. Actually, I was coming home from CVS and I was pulled over by an officer as I drove too fast in a school zone near my house. I wasn't paying attention at all to the speed or to his very obviously visible car, and he clocked me going way too fast. Seeing the lights behind my car got my heart going, as it would most people. I pulled over and I calmed myself. I quickly admitted to myself all the areas I was wrong. I didn't make it wrong for him to do his job and point out where I was wrong. I took very deep breaths. I went over in my mind how I wanted to talk to him. I took total control over my body language. Despite small issues that maybe I have with authority in general, I kept my ego in check and I was very humble. I told him the truth as he asked where I was going and why so fast. I didn't go into his emotional lane. I stayed very anchored in my lane. I didn't try to change his opinion. I didn't try to influence what he might do. I told him with a lot of humility that I had no excuse, that I was definitely wrong to be going too fast. I explained that I was going on a trip. He could see the CVS bag. I stayed anchored in what I needed to take responsibility for. I didn't make up bigger stories in my mind about anything. I didn't think that maybe I'm someone who's targeted. I didn't think that this would delay our trip. I watched what I was thinking. More so, I calmed my nervous system, and I know how to feel what I'm feeling. I allowed the stress and the cortisol and the fear to be in my body. I didn't try to run from them. I allowed them as long as they needed to be there. Now, this one example highlights many core confidence muscles. I stayed centered in my experience with the police officer. I took responsibility for my emotions. I didn't blame anyone for what I did wrong. I paid attention to my body language, my tone of voice, so I projected what was true to me. Now, although I definitely didn't want a ticket, I wasn't trying to convince him to understand why I was going so fast and how that might be right. This right here is one of the most anchoring things we can do, and it's better to practice this in smaller situations. The more we understand why we are doing things, the more we understand and like or don't like the choices we make, the more anchored and balanced we will be. All of my communication with him was calm and stayed focused on the situation. I didn't try to blame the school for being in the wrong place or ask him why he was checking speeds instead of anything else the police could be doing. All of that would have been veering into his lane, into his responsibilities, and deflecting attention from what was really the issue here, which was my speed. Now, keeping our core emotions balanced requires us to notice when we might veer into blaming others and coming back to the only thing we can control, how we are feeling and acting. I did feel guilty going too fast near the school. And funny thing, my neighborhood is surrounded by 4 schools. So honestly, it's a good lesson and reminder for me. By taking responsibility for myself, I could learn that lesson and improve a blind spot I had before. Core confidence is also giving ourselves grace. I didn't beat myself up at all about making this mistake. I know I've made mistakes before. I'm not someone who is going around breaking the law. I had a lot of grace for myself. I did not have any negative self-talk. Now, here's the good thing. He came back and he gave me a warning. I didn't get a ticket. He said he didn't want to make my day more stressful before a trip. Now, that was kind of him. I don't know what influenced him to do that. Was it possibly that I wasn't defensive? Was it possibly that he doesn't get people admitting that they're wrong so quickly? I don't know. I know, though, that I liked how I showed up and that was all I could control. I was willing to accept a ticket if that's what he gave me. A core confidence muscle is releasing control over what we can't control. Much of the anxiety I create for myself and see in others is us trying to control what we can't. Instead, calming confidence comes when we stop trying to control others. Calming confidence comes even when navigating moguls, when we allow messiness and unpredictability and uncertainty. It doesn't feel good. It's hard work, and it's the work worth doing. Like in this situation, I had to learn from it and like how I showed up. If I did that, I stayed balanced. Now back to my skiing story. I didn't try to change things outside of me. I had total control of which lift I went up, of which run I chose to go down. I hadn't chosen where to design moguls or such. I didn't get mad at the mountain. I didn't get mad at whoever designed it. I didn't even get mad at myself for choosing a route that I didn't really know in advance. I didn't get mad at my daughter who wanted to go harder and go faster. I stayed balanced by focusing on how I navigated each turn. I enjoyed the day so much and grew stronger because I was willing to accept each new section of the run. I went slowly and I didn't compare myself to my daughter or to any other skier out there. Core emotional muscles are built. We stay balanced in life when we can do what we do and by knowing what we can't do. I went slow when I needed to, not the entire way, but I knew when I needed to go slow and take a break. Slowing down when life gets hard, that keeps us balanced. Slowing down allows us to get in touch with how we're feeling, to allow any emotion, to feel them like waves coming and going. Slowing down allows us to really assess what we're thinking, to make decisions about how we want to show up. Slowing down and breathing, I cannot emphasize the power of breathing more. This calms our nervous system and allows us to show up and make decisions from a regulated internal state. You may have noticed my podcasts aren't released every week like they were the first 3 years of the podcast. I've had to slow down in certain areas to stay balanced and anchored in other parts. And I'm okay with how I'm staying balanced. Sometimes it's hard to not compare, even within my own life. How could I do these things at other times? And now I need to slow down. But I get centered and I give myself grace and understanding, and I stay balanced, or as much as I can. I remember why I do what I do. I remember it's my job to ultimately like how I show up and take responsibility for me and control only what I can and accept all the things that I can't control. Ironically, that is where balance and core confidence come from. You'll notice from my skiing story that I almost lost confidence the last time when I took notice of these scary thoughts. Oh my gosh, this run is so steep. I got scared when I believed what I was thinking. Core confidence requires flexible thinking and the ability to dismiss thoughts when they won't really get us where we want to go. I saw those thoughts and I reminded myself, I had already done these runs. I could do it. Y'all, we can't believe everything we think. This is mental work I do every single day. Every single day. Core confidence comes in and reminds us that we have done hard things and we can do hard things. And when we take action on those things, we can act our way into a new way of thinking. That's exactly what I did that day. I'm really proud of that day on the mountain with my daughter. I was sweating so much. My hair was totally soaked in sweat, like totally. And if you know me, you know I have some of the thickest hair. I didn't take myself out of the experience because of fear or anxiety. I did a lot of things I haven't done prior, and I was okay with falling. I also did the day at a speed I liked, and I was okay that other people were doing things at their speed. I didn't tell my daughter to slow down, and I didn't tell my husband to get better and to get on the runs with me. I stayed balanced and strengthened my muscles by being me and letting everyone else be them. I love that my daughter came up to us right after her last run and she told us with excitement and enthusiasm about her last fall, how she went flying, how all her equipment flew off. She had to get it all because I wasn't there to help her. She had a hysterical and animated story about her fall. Now, she wasn't hurt, so she had the luxury to tell us this story without tears, but she also wasn't afraid to fall. I'm really glad I could experience the day with her and that she had me doing hard things. She sees me do hard things, hard emotional things, a lot. She also sees me make mistakes and need to repair. She knows it's okay that she goes off and does other runs when I can't do them. I don't need her to be a certain way, so I feel good about myself. At some point, she'll go off and start a more independent life in a few years. My core confidence will kick in again, allowing her to fall, allowing the uncertainty and lack of control. It's hard, y'all. I get it. It's also the work that's worth doing and the work that makes me proudest of how I show up for myself and my family. That's it for this week. If you would like more calm and hope and less worry in your life, sign up for a free consult call at HeidiBenjaminZinn.com or DM me on social media. A confident mother is the greatest gift to her family, not a perfect mother. Our families want us to feel confident, anchored, and calm. I can help you uncover this version of yourself. Have a great week.